through this. Okay, so we did miss last week because of the strike, but you were to go over this start of chapter 10. And the first part of chapter 10 shouldn't have been too bad because you are kind of familiar with all of this character testing stuff. Okay, what's new? You have to include the CCC type. But this chapter 10 is just like chapter 9 from the Java book. Back there, we did characters and regular strings. What's included in this chapter is these things called C strings. And hopefully, you watch the two videos and you have an idea what I'm talking about. When we're going with character testing, we need to make sure we include the pre-processor directive of include CC type. And if you take a look at some of the functions, not methods, but functions in this case, we have one called isAlpha, and I could check to see if that's an alphabet character or not. It's going to return a true or false. So lots of different ways I could use this. Part of an if statement, assign a value to a Boolean variable, etc. Here we have the toUpper function being used. And this was a different one. Instead of a whole group that returned Booleans, here's ones that would return a character. And you've sort of seen this before with taking a character and making it an uppercase. It worked out well with our run again option. You know, enter a Y or a Y or a yes. You do the char at and then the uppercase it, and then you'd only have to compare it to a capital Y. Are there any questions about that first part in character testing? I can throw a code listing up and we can talk about it if there's questions. Um, I'm just putzing through the book right now to try and grab one. Here's one. You know, we have the include CCC type. Again, they're using pi this way, not a fan, but they're using it as a constant value. But here's an example of toUpper. Okay. Go again. Whatever go again is, it was inputted. We turned it into a capital Y or a capital Y. When we worked with the string class, instead of just a character, we used char at to get the first character and then did something like this. What's different between here and Java? Do you remember? In Java, we had to include the class name character dot, and then we put the method in here. In C++, we can just put the function name. Again, function and method, words that are interchangeable. Okay, and then there was a program, number 609, number 12, that would have been a good one if we would have met last week, we would have covered this. And you know, you would be bringing in and going through one character at a time and checking it. You probably could have read this in a lot of different ways, but that would have been a nice little password checker. And everybody knows today how these three bullets are probably now 9 bullets, where you're checking the length and certain characters you can use and certain you can't. And it would have to be true, and there has to be a lowercase, there has to be an uppercase, there has to. So this is something that is really extremely common. Any comments, any questions on this? We would have read this in as a string, figured a way to go through it one at a time. We can always revisit that. So that was first two sections, 10.1, 10.2. Then 10.3, things started to get a little interesting. And you got into these things called C strings. Now, this goes back to it, and you'll hear the term, and I probably said it in the video of legacy code. And in the old days, we had to use the C language. Has the C language gone away? No. There may be companies that still have programs in C, and you have to understand how all that works. And C was before C++. Things that were added to C that we now take for granted is the string class. Just like in Java, the string class is there. I can remember when the string class was not there and we had to write arrays of characters. So in my lifetime, that's what was going on. We were writing array of characters. Well, this is extremely similar to that. When I work with this thing called a C string, it's an array of characters. And you saw it represented. Hopefully, you watched the video. It's terminated by this /0. It's called the null terminator. It's ASCII code 0. It's false when we come to Boolean. All of these things are the same. All of these things are the same. Did you have questions? Okay, so let's take a look at reading in a C string. I'm going to read in and I'm going to treat it like an array of characters. This cin.get line now becomes important when you're working with this because I'm going to read it in and I need the size for get line. So I'm going to set it at 80. 80 is old school because on a punch card, which was one line of code back when I started, had 80 possible places to punch holes in. Okay. Questions. Then there were some library functions we got to work with, like I want to take a string 2, and add it to the end of string 1. Does anybody know what the bad thing was about working with these C strings? Well, what's the bad thing about working with arrays in C++? Anybody remember?
They're limited in size.
Right, the size is a problem. We would get an index out of bounds back in Java. Not here. It just says do whatever you want. Oh, got excited there. Do whatever you want. Now we're all crooked. There we go. Do whatever you want. The C class that someone wrote has functions that someone wrote that were built in. So the second part of last week or the beginning of this week's video would have been working with these functions to go along with C string. Here's a way to check to make sure I don't have any problems. This was a nice little code, a block of code. The first one, welcome to North Carolina. I want to store it in this variable called max characters, yada, yada, yada. I can only get so many characters, and I use this N this time instead of str cat. This is going to help me with not going out of bounds. And again, you see my note in the book, number of characters to be copied. So we had a whole bunch of functions and they were bulleted on a page. So there was a lot of stuff going on that I could use with these C strings. Okay, so the first thing in the video talked about characters. The second thing was C strings and working with C strings. Now, section 10.5, we get into a bunch of conversion things. Some of these things won't work in Dev C++, letting you know that. A to I converts a C string to an integer. Well, that's kind of nice. Examples are nice. A to I, da 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 da, assigns it to a num. And of course, we have integer, we have long, we have float, different things that we could convert a C string to. Not too bad. And again, he puts just enough in the book with all these different string to number functions and so forth that we can do these conversions. Now you know they exist. You should be kind of like hearing them for a second time. Oh man, the video, I got lots of stuff going on in here. I have drawings and circlings and conversions and lots of stuff. Good example, code listing 1010. And as you, so this is another thing that's now blowing my mind. We just did the program in 121 to convert phone numbers. Like if I type in something and has letters, it converts it to a number, different version this year. But man, they are using hash maps and this and that and the other. It's crazy. Like you don't need all that. What you need for what we're doing is right here in the book. You don't have to get the Google out and go crazy. Questions, questions. I'm looking over this. This is what you don't get to do with the videos, but I'm giving you a chance to do now. Okay? Oh, I hit my stinking thing again. So that was this section 10.5. It was to do these conversions to an integer. I want to take a C string and convert it to an integer. Section 10.5. Section 10.6, now we get into what we like, and that's the C++ string class. And again, here's this get line that is really nice because get line will read in what to help me out.
It'll read the entire thing,
Yes,
including
it gets
spaces.
excellent, excellent, Aster. Yeah, it gets the spaces and some other things, and it gives me the whole thing. What if I only did get? Again, we go back to that. Don't forget, sometimes there is a carriage return in the buffer, and that can cause some problems. Okay, so we just have to be cautious of that. All right, so now if it was up to me, here's what we would do. The first program is going to test working with this C string. Okay, write a program and ask you to enter a series of single digit numbers with nothing separating them. Like they would enter 2514 in a row. Read the input as a C string. Okay, program should display the sum of all the digits. For example, 2514 should display 12. So this is going to give us some practice working with a C string. It's going to give us practice working with that, somehow converting it to an integer type of deal so that I can add them together. Everything you need is in the code listings. The second program I want to work on today is this number 15. Now this says, if you've downloaded that, you will find text.txt in chapter 10 folder. I think I have that, and I'll go put it on D2L. And then write a program that reads the file contents and determines how many upper cases, how many lower cases, and how many numbers there are. Again, we want to practice reading in each line as a C string. And it sounds to me like we're going to do that is upper, is lower, is digit kind of deal. So I think these two programs will give us a little bit of flavor of what we're doing in chapter 10. Questions? Comments? Again, that was page 609, number 15, and 608, number 8. Now we get to do the fun stuff. You don't have to sit and listen to me. You get to actually code. All right. Did. She did not show up. Okay. So I'm going to make some breakout rooms. One room, two rooms would have 6 to 7. Three rooms would have 4 to 5. Four rooms would have, let's see, three, Do you like small groups or bigger groups?